Hey there, EB here. Happy Thursday. Doing the Anything But Blam weekly update. Really excited to jump on a number of topics this week, both politically, athletically, professional sports, some social issues, and some Hollywood issues. First, let's deal with the Oscars on Sunday night. I was extremely disappointed that Timothy Chalamet did not win Best Actor. I was very upset that I thought that a complete unknown should have beaten Honore, but I really felt for Demi Moore. At 62 years old, she's just exquisite. I think she has suffered from being just instead of being recognized as a great actress and actor, I think she has not been taken as seriously as she should because of her just absolute raging beauty that is timeless. So many movies that she was in, she's extremely, diverse in the characters that she can do. Uh, an officer and not an officer and gentleman, Tom Cruise. In that movie, I forget the name of it, with Jack Nicholson, just was just incredible. I thought she played a great role in that. Um, so you know, I like some of the performances. Certainly, Aiden Brody going on for 6 minutes was just ridiculous in his speech. He won Best Actor for The Brutalist, which I understand is a good movie. I am going to go see it, but so that is it with that. Ben Affleck is trying to get back with Jennifer Garner, which is interesting. And we'll talk some more stuff about the Epstein files being piecemeal released by Pam Bondi, the United States Attorney General. She is releasing all of the records from the Epstein that were have been sealed. So we should see some interesting people who may have had relationships, both friendship, business, and maybe quasi-sexual at the behest of Epstein with different people. So that should be interesting to watch. But I think the shot that's been heard around the world was the Oval Office meeting last Friday between Zelensky, Trump, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio. Really, Marco Rubio wasn't there. He was kind of slouching on the couch, and they did a skit on Saturday Night Live about that meeting, and they showed that he was, just sitting there. So let's talk about it. One, I think that Zelensky was 100% wrong for not showing up to the Oval Office wearing a suit. Wearing his sweater or his long sleeve shirt and his fatigue type pants, army fatigue type pants. Um, was not appropriate in the Oval Office. One, I say that because everybody wears suits in the Oval Office. I could say a lot of negative things about Donald Trump, but what I will say is that he dresses appropriately all the time. He wears a suit and tie, or he wears a coat with a button-down shirt. He only wears casual clothes on the golf course, and I think he treats the office with the respect that it deserves. And I think Zelensky, there's a time and a place for him to wear his war uniforms, but that wasn't it. I also think that there's just been this long feud between President Trump and Zelensky going back to 2019 when Zelensky would not agree to say publicly that he was investigating Biden's contact with the oil conglomerate Burisma with Hunter Biden. It formed the basis of, the impeachment, the first impeachment that Trump was impeached but not convicted in the Senate. I do not think that Zelensky should have taken the bait, at least from J.D. Vance, certainly never from President Trump, not on that kind of stage to be combative. Um, while I was disappointed that, the United States, and I made this clear, has gravitated towards the Russian dogma, the Russian propaganda. Um, Look, Trump does want peace, and I do believe that he wants peace, and he doesn't want a continuation of the war. But I disagree with excluding Ukraine and denigrating Europe and saying that Europe can't uh, bring peace, even though Europe is doing their own peace plan that they're going to present to Putin. The United States has to have the head seat at the table. They have to be sitting at the table and be head. Whether you want to argue over whether we've given $140 billion, $250 billion, or $500 billion, as Trump says, it's a shit ton of money. And I do believe that Zelensky should have been more appreciative. I think he should have apologized. Whether you're right or wrong, when you want a seat at the table, you better toe the line. There comes a time and a place where you got to suck it up. And he needed to suck it up. Otherwise, he's going to be on the table getting chopped. I don't think that the United States should be publicly stating its positions against Ukraine. I think that should be backroom channels. As a punishment, Trump stopped all of the aid to Ukraine, which I think is deadly. And last night you saw that there was a tremendous rocket damage blast to a hotel in Zelensky's hometown. 4 people were killed, 20 catastrophically injured, in critical condition. Something has to be done. Certainly Europe is stepping up. They've committed, I think UK has committed about $4 billion of aid this week, direct aid that's going to go to them, but that's not enough to keep it. I think Zelensky needs to apologize to Trump, get these diplomatic discussions back on the table. Look, Ukraine has a right to say, look, if you want half of our minerals, you got to guarantee us peace. You got to guarantee us security. Certainly, the European countries in NATO want Article 5 to be enforced because they believe that Russia is a geopolitical threat to them. So that is one thing that we need to closely watch. Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense director, said that they're going to stop all offensive cyber operations against Russia. Now, that is amazing to me. We know that Russia has interfered in our elections. Certainly Marco Rubio, when he was head of the Senate Intelligence Committee in 2016, said the gravest threat has been Russia interfering in our elections and committing cyber crimes against our country. I don't know where he was on this with Pete Hegseth saying they're going to stop cyber operations. It's just something that is stunning to me. Marion Litt just said what Zelensky wore and how he conducted himself served him well with his European allies who are sticking with him, unlike the U.S. He doesn't want a peace that cedes land to Russia. I totally agree with that. To say that on the table that Russia isn't going to give up any land like Pete Hegseth did 3 weeks ago was just a rookie mistake. I think there is a time and a place for him to wear his war outfit, whether that's going to the UN and speaking or some to his European allies. But it just, knowing how Trump is a formal kind of guy in what he wears, somebody should have clued him in and said, hey, maybe you should wear a suit. The State of the Union, while I have tremendous disagreement with Trump in terms of how he stated grandiose statements of how much billions of dollars they're saving with Doge and how they're going to cut the military and cut federal jobs and the deportation, all things that are substantive that we can disagree with. I totally disagree with the Democrats' behavior. Look, just because Joe Wilson 10 years ago with Obama or 12 years ago said that you lie and screamed out, and then Marjorie Taylor Greene doing all of her antics during the Biden State of the Union speeches, doesn't mean that the Democrats should have done what they did. I think they look petulant. They look neutered. They look like they don't have a real strategy. Again, I am just tired of Schumer, and I don't think Hakeem Jeffries is strong enough as a leader. Nancy Pelosi is still making public statements as if she's the Speaker of the House or the majority leader of the Democratic Party. There needs to be new blood. There needs to be people like the senator from Connecticut, and also, there's a House member from Massachusetts. He's a Marine, Seth Moulton, who I really like. Christopher Hines from Connecticut. These are new people that need to speak. Yes, people need to talk about Trump's lies. He needs to be fact checked, but it was disgraceful, I think, when the House member from uh, Texas shook his cane and had to be escorted out and said, you didn't have a mandate. And he may not have a mandate because he only won by 1%, but it was a 6% swing. Don't forget, Biden had won by 4%. So it was a 6% swing. So it's whether it's a mandate or not, he is powerful. He does have the House and the Senate, and he does seem to have the Supreme Court. So I thought that was embarrassing. I thought holding up the play cards like it was your bidding was bad. And certainly when they didn't stand to clap for a 13-year-old kid that survived cancer that was made an honorary member of the Secret Service, I thought that was petulant. There's certain things that they can clap on, that they can give respect. Look, Trump said no matter what he does, he's never going to get an attaboy, whether he can cure an epidemic or stop a war or anything. I thought that was bad that they didn't do that. Look, I've already made it clear that I think that biological men should not be able to compete in women's sports. We can disagree on that. That's just a position I have. And there are some Democrats that believe what I believe in too. And they didn't even, they booed and hissed at that. You know, there is waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Let's get that clear. Every administration piles on jobs, piles on money to a specific department that they want to do to. But again, let's take a scalpel to this instead of a sledgehammer. I'll get into Elon Musk, but we can have thoughtful studies of departments to determine where there is overlap, where there is waste. And we can get rid of 5%. We can maybe be able to get rid of 8%, 10%, maybe it's 2%. But it should be over time. And when you're trying to eliminate a department like Department of Education, Trump announced this morning he's going to eliminate the Department of Education. He hopes that Stephanie McMahon's mother, Linda McMahon, from the WWE, who's head of the cabinet official for Department of Education, that he wants her to be out of a job. Look, 50 million kids who are educated in our country benefit from the Department of Education. There's Title IX for disabilities and women, special programs that kids are entitled to for learning. I don't want it all left up to the states. And, just to say that Trump is doing a great job because he's cutting. I mean, anybody can cut a department. And by the way, you can't cut the Department of Education. That's a congressional cabinet department with a cabinet post. Only Congress can do that. So I think the way around they're going to do it is just cut it off at its knees with no funding. Elon Musk saying that it's full of criminals. I mean, come on, man. Can we stop with this rhetoric? But by the same token, Trump was honoring families who had loved ones killed by sanctuary policies, illegals in sanctuary cities. I get it that we have so many murders where our citizens are killing everybody else, but can we at least, the Democrats at least acknowledge that it's those families are here and we could clap for those families. Same with families that have police officers and their families killed. Can we at least have Democrats that would say, hey, we could clap for their families? And, I am a death penalty advocate. If you are a cop killer, you're going to get the death penalty in my eyes. Democrats have to learn to choose where they should fight and where they should be conciliatory. Otherwise, these State of the Union speeches are going to become a full-blown WWE wrestling match. We want to have principled resistance, not emotional immaturity. And so I think that some of the Democrats were emotionally immature. The Greenland prime minister said without question, and most of their people said, we are not interested in becoming part of the United States. Trump doubled down and said, we're either going to take it by grace or take it by force. The people of Greenland, they don't necessarily want to be part of Denmark, but they want to be Greenlanders. They don't want to be part of the United States. Now we move into tariffs. That's just an amazing thing that I'm seeing taking place. The chaotic nature of the imposition of these tariffs, and then 15 minutes later or a half a day later saying, well, we're going to give a carve out or an exemption to automakers. And that because the automobile presidents of these companies have called and said, look, man, you're going to kill us with the importation of a lot of parts and cars from Mexico and Canada that we need to get here. You're going to kill the auto industry. So he gave him a 30-day reprieve. Again, this should be studied. There should be discourse and discussion with industries to say, how would it affect you? Now we're having a lot of the farmers in the Midwest speak up and say, hey, you cannot levy tariffs against Canada because it's going to affect us. Certainly Kentucky, who has the bourbon that it exports to Canada, Mitch McConnell, Andy Beshear, and Rand Paul, the senators from Kentucky, said you're going to kill the bourbon industry. So, it's great to talk about tariffs. It's great to talk about across the board. But I don't think we should do this with Canada, and I certainly don't think we should do it with Mexico. And it creates an uncertainty in the business industry, in the business environment. Companies like stability. They have to be able to forecast. They have to be able to forecast their labor force, how much money they're going to spend on R&D, whether they're going to expand plants or not. And this whipsaw every day of tariffs being imposed, and then 15 minutes later, you're carving out what they shouldn't do. Look, you want a tariff, don't tariff Europe, don't tariff Canada, don't tariff Mexico. Tariff China. I don't have a problem with tariffing China at all if we have this massive trade imbalance. But remember, China came out and said after we put the 10% tariffs on them, we are prepared for a tariff war, and we're prepared for any kind of war the United States wants, and we will see it through to the end. So whether we want to believe it or not, we are in the middle of trade wars. So, there's a lot of MAGA voters who are in these Midwestern states that are going to be affected with these tariffs on agriculture. It's a roller coaster ride. Are we doing these subsidies because of a trade imbalance or because of fentanyl? The fentanyl deaths from Canada are less than 2%. So I don't think we should wreck an economy like Ontario trades with 18 states. And then they threaten to shut off electricity to America, which would be a real big deal because we do get a lot of electricity from Canada. So let's have a measured discussion about tariffs. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it against China. I'm not against doing it with China. I'm okay with talking to Mexico and Canada about illegals coming over the border. What are they going to do? If you don't do it, there will be penalties. But cross-the-board tariffs don't work. Also, the Veteran Administration is cutting 80,000 workers. This is for our veterans, people who fight for our country, who need medical care, who need their benefits, who need education, who have to go through the maze of bureaucracy to get things done when they come back for fighting and serving for our country. I think it's a disgrace. Cutting 80,000 workers, even though some were put on the payroll during the Biden administration. I don't think that's a measured way of dealing with important sections of our country, the military. Again, let's measure 3 times and cut once. It shows a complete lack of care and concern for veterans in our country. And it doesn't surprise me because he was a draft dodger. I don't care what you say. You could talk about how patriotic he is. And yes, he almost got assassinated. And yes, he's the president of the United States. But he was a draft dodger in the Vietnam War when a lot of people fought. He used his father's relationships and advantage to get a doctor's note to get out of the war. I think what is happening is we're seeing a lot of these policies getting implemented where they're cutting departments or they're cutting funding, and it's all going to the courts. It's getting flooded with the courts. And what you're seeing is that the courts are ruling, and these are Republican judges, against what the DOJ is trying to do and some of the executive orders of President Trump that now number over 100. And they want this chaos. The Trump administration wants this chaos. They want to see, courts ruling against them so they could take it to the public to say, see, we're trying to change this country, but the courts aren't letting us do that. You see, we have laws in this country, and the court's job is to construe the law as written. They may not agree with it, but their job is to be colorblind and hear no evil, see no evil, and just apply the law as Congress enacted the laws, not the executive branch. Congress enacts the laws. So how long is it going to be before Elon Musk's unpopularity becomes a yoke around President Trump's neck? Look, the Tesla stock is dropping. He's lost, I think, almost $100 billion of his net worth. It really doesn't matter because he was $434 billion on December 20th. Now he's $380 billion. Can you imagine that? I mean, he has enough money to control the world. I don't think you can have a company where only Republicans buy your cars. I told you the statement that Michael Jordan made when they wanted him to be political, and he said Republicans buy sneakers too. I think that if you're a Democrat and you buy a Tesla car, you should have your head examined. One of the things that was interesting is last Sunday, Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Wall Street, finally gave an interview, and he talked about the tariffs. And he said that it's the dumbest thing to take this tariff plunge. The Wall Street Journal also said it was the dumbest thing to take this tariff plunge. Buffett said that it's an active war when you start this kind of trade exchange of tariffs, where you put 25% in and they put 25% in. He said, who's going to pay for these tariffs? The tooth fairy? What he meant was, we're going to pay for it. The consumer always pays for it. So I think that's something that we should really think about. They're talking about, we terminated a contract, Doge did, that is going to save $40 million. Turns out that George Bush was president when the U.S. Coast Guard signed a contract to get administrative help from a company in Northern Virginia. It paid $144,000 for the contract that they said is going to save over $40 million. And the contract was completed 20 years ago. Now, Elon Musk said, yes, we're going to make mistakes and, whatever. But we have to have accurate information to the public. We have to really have what it is, how many people's jobs are getting cut, how much savings are going to be, and it needs to be accurate. Elon Musk, during the State of the Union speech, he was told, Trump said he's the director of Doge. Well, they told the Supreme Court and they told two other courts that he is not the director of Doge, that he's the director of tech for the administration, and that Doge has a different director. What is it going to be? What is Elon Musk's role? We have to really have a firm understanding of that. I do like this morning that Trump announced that they're negotiating directly, the United States, with Hamas, that they're also bypassing a little bit what Israel's doing with some of the Arab states in the negotiations. Look, the United States policy forever has been we don't negotiate with terrorists, but I think it's a good thing. And I applaud President Trump for letting his Middle East negotiator make these contacts with Hamas. But I love what he said. He said, if you don't release the hostages, I'm going to blow you up. You're going to end. And it's time that they release the hostages. He said a statement that I agree with. He said, who keeps dead bodies? What's the advantage of that? I think it's disrespectful to the dead, obviously, and to their families. Israel said that they're going to blockade into Gaza until there's a ceasefire extension and discussion. Remember, we're now past phase one. We've released all the prisoners in phase one. So the determination has to be, how do we get to phase two? And Israel now is going to starve them out. And Hamas needs to come to the table, because I think Trump is serious about giving Israel the green light to wipe them out. And it's time that real negotiations take place. Trump cutting off aid to Ukraine in the middle of the war is really, I think, dangerous. I think it plays into Putin's hands, and certainly all the rhetoric where, the arguments that have been had that Putin that Zelensky is ungrateful. It did nothing but embolden Russia to keep their foot on the gas. There's an effort in Los Angeles to recall Karen Bass, who's the mayor of Los Angeles. I totally think she's inept and she didn't do a good job during the fires. So that's interesting. We have the Tate brothers, who are influencers that are brought back into the Florida to stand trial for trafficking allegations, and they got in a tiff with Governor Ron DeSantis. They seem to be bad guys. You know, just because we're cutting off U.S. aid doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. You know, there's so many illnesses around the world, whether it's Ebola, whether it's AIDS, whether it's COVID. You know, we spend money far across the world so that those diseases don't come to the United States. So I think we again need to be working with a scalpel. We need to be cautious in what we're doing. The next subject is Cheryl Hines. We're going to start getting down into some different subjects and not some political. Cheryl Hines said that she demands to live in Washington, D.C. with her husband, Robert Kennedy, the head of the HHS. She was on Curb Your Enthusiasm because she wants to keep an eye on him because he has admittedly a wandering eye towards other women. We know that he had these texting exchanges with this reporter for the Atlantic Newsio who got fired last summer. So she is giving up her Hollywood life for a political life. I've been asked to talk about Nancy Mace because I represent Brian Musgrave, one of the 4 people that she falsely accused of being a rapist, a sex trafficker, and a predator. She's posted them on a poster and put it outside her office in Washington, D.C. All I will say is that I believe he's innocent. He's proclaimed his innocence publicly. He and his wife just gave an exclusive interview to CNN, which will air, I think, Monday night, which I think you're going to find quite informative on Anderson Cooper 360. You know, Miss May certainly has a right to complain as a victim. If she's a victim, I am 100% behind her. I've already said that publicly. But I disagree with her methods of going on the House floor where she's totally protected with the speech and debate clause. She really hasn't come forward with any evidence against anybody. So I think the speech and debate clause has limited protection for her and some of the things that she has done. I think the courts need to explore on whether she has protection for that. Brian Kohlberger case is real interesting. That's the one where 4 students were killed in Iowa. There's DNA under the fingernails of one of the victims that is not what the reporting is may not be Brian Kohlberger's, which is really interesting. There's going to be a tremendous evidentiary fight. He's got some good lawyers representing him. They've made some real motions on genealogy exclusion and this DNA exclusion. There was DNA on a blood sheet, on a knife holder sheath that they found that belongs allegedly to Brian Kohlberger. But I think there's going to be a real fight on this case because, you know, when women are attacked, they fight back, or when men are attacked, they fight back. And oftentimes you get the DNA under your fingernails. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Remember a couple years ago, the Kansas City Chiefs had a playoff game and 3 guys died outside a house in the snow where 5 guys were partying and they weren't found for like a day and a half. They finally charged the homeowner and another guy with involuntary manslaughter because there was cocaine and fentanyl in the house. So those charges took 2 years. The Chargers released, surprisingly, the 5-time Pro Bowler and their edge rusher who is has the most sacks in Chargers history, Joey Bosa. He was from Ohio State. Again, a great player, but misses a lot of time for injuries. I think he's only played in 23 games the last 2.5, 3 seasons. Really great player. Somebody's going to pick him up and take advantage of it. Joel Embiid is out for the season. I think we're starting to see LeBron and Luka Doncic play together great. I think that's going to be, I think they're going to go deep into the playoffs. Matthew Stafford, who was the key quarterback in the NFL for the offseason carousel, re-signed with the Rams. I think it was a smart idea. He's got 3 kids in school. He's got a house out there. I didn't really see him going to the East Coast to the Giants, where they speculated his coach, Sean McVay, is probably one of the top 3 coaches in the NFL. Really smart guy. They have a lot of talent on their team. All they need, I think, is a wide receiver, and we'll see about that. Aaron Rodgers, he got cut by the Jets. So did Devontae Adams. We're going to see where they go. Rodgers wants to go to a winner, and there's not a lot of winners that need a quarterback right now. There's the Giants, who are losers, Tennessee Titans, the Raiders, they're losers. There's not a lot of spots that he can go to. So he's going to have to make a decision. Does he keep playing and play for a loser that may not have a 10-win season, or does he retire? I think Devontae Adams going back to the West Coast is a big thing. Let's talk about the Raiders. I think that's a great spot for somebody to go to, somebody like Sam Darnold, who the Vikings are not going to franchise tag or looks like re-sign. You got a great coach in Pete Carroll. You got Tom Brady, and you also have some really, really good people. Chip Kelly was just hired. Remember, he was the offensive coordinator for Ohio State in their recent national championship against Texas. I mean, he did a great job. So he's a great offensive mind, former coach of the Eagles, former coach of the 49ers, former coach of UCLA, former coach of Oregon. This is a guy that knows football. So I think a Raiders is a good destination. DK Metcalf is going to explore the free agent market. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he's a top 10 or 15 yet. Surprisingly, they cut Taylor Lockett. The Seattle Seahawks did. He's been with them for 10 years, so I think he's going to end up with the Raiders with Pete Carroll, who I think is a dynamite coach, ladies and gentlemen. Won a national championship with USC in the college level in 2005, won Super Bowl with the Seahawks, took them to another Super Bowl. It's going to be interesting to see, does Daniel Jones sign with Minnesota, or does he go to Indianapolis or another team? Again, Sam Darnold. Saquon Barkley signed a $41 million extension with the Eagles yesterday. Thank God. I think he's great. They're going to have him now for a long time. They also signed Bond, their middle linebacker, which is really good. He came from the Saints. Joe Tierney, the Chiefs let him go. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL, even at 32 years old. He plays year in, year out through injuries, hasn't missed a lot of time. He went to the Bears, and they also got Jackson, another offensive lineman from the Lions. Now Caleb Williams is going to have a great coach in Ben Johnson, and now he has offensive line protection. The Bengals have an interesting dilemma. They're going to have to sign Jamar Chase to a long-term deal. He and Justin Jefferson are the 2 best wide receivers in the NFL, and they're going to franchise tag T. Higgins again. When you franchise tag, that wide receiver gets the average of the top 5 salaries in the NFL for that year, but it's not a long-term signing. These athletes want 4 and 5 year contracts or 4-year contracts, and T. Higgins is going to be a real problem with them. Max Crosby just signed again with the Raiders as their defensive end. He's now the highest paid non-quarterback of all time. He signed a contract that I think was like $150 million with $92 million guaranteed. The 2 other players that I think are going to be the interesting free agents are Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns, unbelievable player from Texas A&M, unbelievable rusher. He's going to get big money from a team, as well as Micah Parsons. Is Dallas going to pay him for what he's worth? He plays defensive end and linebacker, just really good stuff. And finally, Casey Anthony, she's unbelievable. She's like the person who lights your house on fire and then comes in the fire truck and says, I'm going to help you put it out. She's now publicly proclaiming she's going to be an advocate for children and other people. That girl, to me, knows no shame. So we have a couple questions, and those are, What are your thoughts about the three unknown DNA under the fingernails in the Idaho murder case? I think it's interesting. I don't know why the defense wants to exclude that because it's inconclusive. I guess they wanted to say that it's definitely not Kohlberger, but again, there's going to be tremendous evidentiary legal fights to exclude evidence, which is called a motion in limine, Limine. Then how are attorneys in courts able to protect victims' anonymity during Jane Doe cases? That's really interesting. People file Jane Doe cases, but you actually have to get permission from the court to make sure it stays Jane Doe. And you have to get permission of the court to have records sealed. You just can't file them under seal. You got to have an order of the court. And sometimes the courts will protect the anonymity of a litigant, but other times, because if it's a public concern, they may not. So let's kind of go to the chat board here and see what we got. Daniel Ray said, good morning, keep up the fight. Thank you, Danielle, for listening. Virginia Rodriguez said, Musk is close to becoming Trump's Gregorio Rasputin. History does repeat itself. I totally agree. Be careful what you wish for, you may get it. I do agree that he's going to be the thorn in Trump's side before it's all over with. Marianne Litt said, with Zelensky war is how he conducts himself. I already talked about that. He doesn't want a peace with Russia that cedes land and doesn't give him security. I agree with that too. Karen Ladley said someone has to talk about his lies during his speech. It's hard, because he lies so frequently in what he says. You just can't fact check it and do it in real time. And if you do it the next day, there's already another news cycle. It's really difficult. I mean, the guy is absolutely brilliant. He says what he wants. His followers believe him. There's no repercussions for it. And again, we go back to Kellyanne Conway in 2016, where he said Trump has his own alternative set of facts. That was a bellwether sign of what is to come. And the truth no longer matters. Again, the truth is not important. It's the message. She said, Rebecca said, please tell me your thought on it was disrespectful that they didn't clap for a kid with cancer. I do think it's horrible. It's just that there's a time and a place, and that wasn't the time and the place to show your disagreement. Rebecca said, thanks for saying that. Sunny Day said, do you believe he paused because of the reaction by the stock market? A number of factors. Stock market, a lot of the Wall Street big banks that finance these businesses, and three, calls directly from farmers and the big three automakers, no question about it. Sonny also says he doesn't care about veterans. I totally agree. Ashley Fry said, can we talk about decorum in general, for instance, taunting the other side? She said she thinks that the layoffs are crazy. How about the money going to Elon Musk's company? Yeah. How about the fact that Verizon contract got canceled and he just got a $2.4 billion contract, government contract last week? I mean, talk about being on the inside. Virginia Rodriguez says she loves Pete Carroll. So do I. Karen Ladley said they cut cancer research. I mean, come on. It's just disgusting what they're doing. They're cutting research into different diseases, and we should go at cancer with everything we got. It affects across the board. It doesn't affect just the rich. It affects the poor, everybody. No, I've never seen anybody carry a U-Haul van with all their belongings behind a hearse. You can't die with money, and you can't die with your toys. You die with what you came in the earth with, which is nothing. We came with nothing. We leave with nothing. So that's the news this week. Everybody have a good weekend, and I will see you next week. Not next week. I'm going to be in Colorado skiing next week, so I may take a week off. Look forward to hearing back from you, and listen to the Good Skill podcast, Betting on Yourself. We have some good guests that we're going to release from recordings that we did. Julie Grant was this week, who is the host of Opening Statements on Court TV. She's a really smart woman, great lawyer. Tonight I'm going to do a book signing and talk about my book, Anything But Bland. in Columbia, South Carolina, at our synagogue. Begins at 6 o'clock tonight. So Anderson Cooper, again, it's going to be on Monday night with the Musgraves. They're going to speak. I think you're going to like what they have to say. EB out.